And we're back with another NBA Observations. It's Gerald Glassford from the Lakers Fast Break. Lakers latest from the Fan Arc Network. Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports, Fantasy Football, all those great things that I do. Plus, occasionally, I provide some NBA observations. But here's the guy who really provides some NBA observations on our show each and every time he can make it on by. I'm glad he is up and about and good to go with us talking about what's going to go on in the second part of this season, I guess, because after the All-Star break, you can't say second half. You want to say second half, but you can't say second half because it's already in the second half. So it's the second part of the NBA season, plus his thoughts on the All-Star game as well. It is Calif Poncy from the Suave Report. Calif, great to have you back on the program.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back. I was sick last week and traveling all over the place, and so I'm glad to be back and able to talk about. There's really been some pretty interesting stuff go on since I think the last time I was on was the trade deadline reaction show. So there's been some interesting things since then, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to our conversation as always. I wanted to go ahead first off. It was the All-Star break and the All-Star festivities, All-Star weekend. We'll get to the game itself before we get to the stuff that surrounded it. The new format with the 3 different teams, Team Stars, Team Stripes, featuring American players, and the Team World, which features stars not from America playing against each other in a round-robin, limited minute per game matchup. And it looked like, I guess there was more competition to be had, but that's basically because one player stepped it up and really sent a message to all the other players out there saying, hey, I'm here for real. This is my first time here, but I'm here for real, and I want to go ahead and I want to make the most of it. It was Victor Wembanyama. Victor was tremendous in his performance. Didn't help. Strangely enough, even though the world on paper seemed like it was going to blow away any other team that would face, didn't manage to win, but that didn't prevent the other teams from giving a better effort once they saw Victor Wembanyama giving his.
Yeah, I mean, Wemby talked about for, I think, about a week before, he said, I know people, this last generation has kind of made it almost like a joke. Like, I wasn't even really looking forward to the All-Star weekend, to be honest. I was kind of just like, it'll come. It's unfortunate. I love watching basketball. There's not going to be any NBA on for a week. So that kind of sucks. But then it came on, and really, I thought, other than the dunk contest, which was a disaster which is not shocking, I thought the rest of the weekend was pretty good, including the game. And I think that Wemby really did. I mean, Anthony Edwards said it after that first game. Wemby really did kind of set the tone of kind of the mindset going in. And I'm hopeful that it kind of sets a trend with this new generation, and maybe this lack of trying or maybe not taking it overly serious is a thing of the past with the LeBron, KD, Harden, whoever generation, not to single them out, but just those sort of the headliners of the generation, obviously. I was still disappointed in a couple. I mean, Team World, on paper, they were the best team, and then the 4 best players on the team all didn't really play. So that didn't help them out at all. Shea and Giannis were legitimately hurt, and then Jokic was playing 40 minutes in regular games and then went out and played 3 minutes and then was too hurt to play in the All-Star game. I thought that was pretty disappointing from the best player in the world to have that in a game when I really thought the effort was pretty good across the board.
Luka was only 5 minutes himself because he was coming back from that sore hamstring himself as well.
Yeah, Luka too. And at least Luka is like, he didn't play. He could have easily not played at all in the game and no one would have blamed him. He didn't play at all heading up to the All-Star break with that injury. And so I gave him a little bit more of a pass. Although I do think if you're going to be active and not have someone take your spot, I do wish you would just be in the game like you were an active player, else let someone else who's deserving have your spot. But I thought Jokic was way more like, that's just, especially in past years, it still would have been gross, but the whole game was so gross that it felt like it didn't matter. this year it was a good event and a good venue for the All-Star game with guys trying, and Kawhi had his crazy run, and then Ant was awesome the whole game, and Wemby's trying and freaking out when his team messes up a switch in the All-Star game. Things that I think all the fans would have been really excited to see, and then kind of the headliner of your league just took a sabbatical and said, "Oh, I guess I'll grace you with my presence, but I'm not going to actually do anything." So I thought that kind of sucked. But other than that, I thought the game was really good. I think me and you both were a little skeptical of this.
Very skeptical. I didn't even. I watched Daytona 500, finished that. They somehow thought putting the All-Star game in the middle of the afternoon, West Coast time, was a great thing to do. Which again, I hear the numbers are up, but I don't know for sure what those all preliminary numbers have the ratings, I believe, up a little bit from what I've understand, but I haven't got confirmation 100% on that. But if that's the case, I don't know how, because it was in the middle of the afternoon. But all right, whatever. I only saw bits and pieces of it, but until I got the feedback from a lot of my audience members out there on the Lakers Fast Break and Lakers Latest, did I go ahead and go back and watch the whole thing. And it was a lot more, it was more entertaining. We'll say a lot more, but it was more entertaining. There was still some players maybe going half speed, to say the least. But Victor Wembanyama, his forcefulness out there, his willingness to humiliate you in front of a worldwide audience was refreshing. And hopefully these players will start to understand that if he's out there, you got to take it more seriously.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I think it's really promising that the two of the three players that I thought really led that charge of being into it, or really, I think if there was five players who really I thought gave a ton of effort, I think three or four of them were young players with Wemby and Anthony Edwards, and then Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, both the Pistons guys, I thought really brought it.
Although Edwards did say it wasn't until Wembanyama started in, that's what
Wemby gets the credit. He started this trend, but I hope it lasts. And I hope, because I mean, I heard it on a podcast yesterday, like these guys are going to get so much more positive reinforcement from this. Like it's like the NBA community has been starving for the All-Star game to not be a joke for the last decade, because it's really, quite frankly, what it's been. And so I thought it worked well. I see no reason for them to go away from it. I thought the nationalism part of it would be cool. It was cool enough, but if everybody was playing, especially, I thought that part was interesting. I don't know if that's what sparked maybe some of the guys to try a little bit harder, if it was just everybody's kind of following Wemby's lead. But yeah, I mean, I thought it clearly in a time when the league was a little bit going through this tanking stuff that we're going to talk about, and having some unfortunate questions asked to players that made negative headlines for certain groups and things like that they can't control at All-Star Weekend. I thought it was really a good PR win for a league that kind of needed it, because there's been some unfortunate things going on in terms of how the league has been digested lately, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was great, and it was fun, and it was led, again, most importantly, led by the young players, although I do think Kawhi was the best player in the game with that 31-point third quarter where he just couldn't miss.
Yes.
So, yeah, I thought it was great, and I hope
he scored 1 point in the next game, which was, I couldn't figure out what was going on there.
Yeah, I don't know if their big goal was just to beat the world team, or if the old team got tired, or I don't know what their deal was there, but they certainly, that fourth quarter, 3 of the quarters were great. I thought pretty much an A+ basket like level, as good as you can expect for the All-Star game. I thought in the first 3 quarters, game winners, and they were all close, and people trying, and blocks and things that we haven't seen in All-Star games in a while. And then that fourth quarter was just the young guns on some rest came out and just ran right over the older guys. But yeah, so no, I thought it was good. I wanted to get your thoughts on it, because it was a new format, and no one really quite got it until, and then I thought once the flow of the game was going, it made sense, but their like lead up to it, I didn't think anyone really could do a great job of explaining exactly how it was going to work, but then it made sense in the flow of the game. And so, no, I thought it was great. I just wanted to kind of get another person's opinion on it.
Just think, if you said the words round robin tournament, I think that would have made everything a lot easier, because people have a kind of understanding then of what it's going to be. But never mentioned those words, so I didn't even know what to going in to expect, and I was like, uh. But again, that's why I only originally just saw bits and pieces of it. But then I heard the feedback, I saw the news reports, I saw what was going on. I saw that everybody was giving it big praise to Adam Silver for making the changes and for the game itself and Victor Wembanyama. And so I said, okay, I'll watch the whole thing straight through on a replay. And I'm glad I did because it showed that the league finally has been tinkering with this for a lot of years. As far as the All-Star game and the All-Star weekend experience, it's still got a lot of room to grow as far as that weekend is concerned. Because I've been of the opinion that they should just nuke the whole weekend. Just give us a week off. Just give the league and the NBA a week off. Don't forget about the All-Star game at this point. But again, they've given some a new lease on life on the NBA All-Star game with this game, because if this would have been a dud, I think the I guess the chance or the calls for a ending of All-Star weekend would have grown louder and louder after it. So this, you could say, this weekend, this All-Star game saved the All-Star game going forward.
Yeah, because I mean, I thought Saturday the 3-point contest, or the shooting in the league is so awesome and deep right now. The 3-point contest is really pretty great every year. But they did a new thing, the shooting stars, which I didn't get a chance to watch. They kind of replaced the skills challenge with that. And I think people thought it was fine. I mean, I think they're still tinkering with it. Like, there's a lot of celebrity involvement. Like Drewski was a celebrity passer for Chet Holmgren's team, like things like that. Where, I mean, that was one of the complaints I did see, especially from some of my friends in the media, is they really had a huge focus on bringing in influencers for this weekend. Like that was a big deal for them. It was reported like we're going to bring in influencers and YouTubers, and that's like I'm all for. I get it. Like the NBA's Adam Silver's come out and said it. Like he doesn't even like people don't really. The younger generation doesn't really watch NBA games. People just kind of take it in through social media, which is unfortunate because I am kind of. I mean, not kind of. I am a member of that younger generation. I really like watching games, so I think that's too bad. But so I mean, I get what they're doing, but at the same time, like, I mean, they had like people there, like Jared McCain and Jalen Duren were rapping, and Jared McCain was in the celebrity 3-point contest. He's like a very good NBA 3-point shooter. I don't really know how he qualifies for the celebrity 3-point contest. The Rising Stars game just seemed to have no less hype than it ever has before. Like it happened, and no, I didn't see a tweet about it other than Zachary Ricochet was terrible. That's the only thing I saw about it the whole game. The 3-point contest was great. Shooting Stars got mixed reviews. The dunk contest was it's just going to be dead if guys like, I mean, I liked Jace Richardson as a prospect enough, but he can that can't be one of the most notable names in your dunk contest. Like you need to have, and I've been talking about this too. Why would John Morant not do the dunk contest this year? Is your PR going to get worse? Like, what is he going to? I don't understand what has to happen for anyone of note. And I honestly thought the last few years, like I know Jaylen Brown did it maybe last year or 2 years ago, and Donovan Mitchell did it his rookie year. Like I thought maybe we were having some guys because like Mac McClung won it because he's great at dunking, but at least Jaylen Brown was in the contest and just makes it a little more interesting because obviously the most famous dunk contests other than 2016 are back when Dr. J and Michael Jordan and Dominique were doing like guys that anyone cares about. And now we're to this thing where of the 4 players who are in it, 1 had more than 8 in-game dunks this season, and it's Jackson Hayes, who had the worst dunk contest dunk in the history of the contest. So
that second one wasn't so bad. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, his first one was.
That's his first one. Yeah, I won't argue with that. I'll just say this: the dunk contest needs to go. If you're not going to get in premier players for it, it just needs to go. Because no one cares that Kashad Johnson or Mac McClung wins the slam dunk contest. Nobody knows how many times in a row Mac McClung has won the slam dunk contest because no one cares how many times he has won the slam dunk contest. He needs to focus, and rightly so. He did say, "I need to focus on trying to get a regular contract." Hello, yes, absolutely, you should. Try to focus in on trying to get a regular contract. You're barely surviving with your cups of coffees as is. Do what you can to try and focus in on and pressing the Chicago Bulls enough to get that at least 2-year deal that you're looking forward to, multi-year deal as far as security for you and your family going forward. The slam dunk contest, no one's going to remember you were a slam dunk contest winner 10, 15, 20 years down the line, not much less a multi-time. But because nobody cares about the slam dunk contest, because if the top stars in the league don't care, why should we?
Yeah, I mean, the only winners that I can like, I could go back. I mean, I'm obviously like, I watch a ton of basketball compared to the average person and like care so much about it. I off the top of my head, in the last like 20, not 20, 15 years, I know the guys who I most associate with it are, of course, 2016, because it's heralded as one of the best dunk contests we've ever had. So I know Zach LaVine, who did end up turning into a very good player, but at the time he wasn't. He won that one. And then other than that, like I know that Blake Griffin won one because he was a very good player. And I know Dwight Howard won one because he was a very good player. Like those are the ones anyone remembers. And so, and if they're not going to have that, I agree. I think on Bill Simmons and Zach Lowe last night, they had a good idea, which was to the last gasp they should have to save it, which I wouldn't really care if they just came out. Like a few years ago, they did that Steph and Sabrina Ionescu shoot off, and I think everyone liked it. Like I think it was a fun, cool, new event. And if you did that instead of the dunk contest, I think honestly at this point it would be better received. But I think Bill Simmons and Zach Lowe had an idea last night where it was like, just have like make rookies do it. Like, why did VJ Edgecombe not do the dunk contest? He's there. He's at All-Star Weekend for Rising Stars. Like, why would VJ Edgecombe not do the dunk contest? But he didn't, because no one does it. And so I think, and I mean, two of the guys were rookies anyway, but if they just had a name as big as VJ Edgecombe in there, who probably would have won the dunk contest anyway, because he's so athletic, I think it would be better. It would be great for it. So I don't think that's a terrible idea, is just have your of note super athletic rookies do it. But or else, yeah, I mean, I think I'm of a similar opinion. Like, I don't think we need to have this around anymore. If the players aren't going to do it, or you're not going to make players do it, which is obviously really hard to do, then what's the point? Because, yeah, like the reason the 3-point contest is awesome is because every year it's Dame, or it's Steph, or it's Klay Thompson, or it's Donovan Mitchell, or it's guys we all know who they are. They're all NBA players. And so as soon as it's a group of Bobby Portis and Luke Kennard and Isaiah Joe and guys like that who all do the 3-point contest, no one's going to care about that anymore either. But right now we have great players doing it. So overall, I thought the weekend was a success. The 3-point contest was awesome. And the game, I mean, the game being saved is a really big win and big deal for the NBA, I think, just because, I mean, I wasn't even, when the game started, I was taking a shower and getting ready to go get some food. I wasn't even going to watch it. And then my friend texted me. He's like, it's actually pretty good. Like, you should watch it. And then I ended up watching the whole thing, and I just didn't eat till like 8 p.m. my time. Like, I just was actually pretty intrigued, but I thought it was fun and the players were trying. And so I think it was a good step. I hope it continues into future years. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad that there seems to be a lot of positive reinforcement for the guys, because hopefully that, you know, instills them with some additional incentive to keep trying.
We'll see what happens, my friend. The rest of the events going on, Damian Lillard won a 3-point contest. People seem to be okay with that. It's a good story, him coming back from the Achilles injury to win the 3-point contest. Steph Curry looks like he's going to try and bring back, of course, himself, the Splash Brothers, him and Clay, for next year's 3-point. So that'll be something interesting to see. So we'll see how that looks going forward. The skills contest or anything relating to that, the Team Knicks, no one cares.
Yeah.
Just come on. Just stop. Just stop. If you can't name it off the top of your head, just stop. Just stop it.
I always liked the skills competition. And then they scrapped it last year after Wemby and Chris Paul cheated. Yeah. And went with this new shooting stars thing. And I still don't really even know what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And then, like you said about the rookie challenge, as far as concerned, that, again, not really much to write home either. You know, Team Melo versus Team Vince Carter. Okay. Yeah. What happened to rookies versus sophomores? But again, that's neat. I digress on that. And then at least no G League was involved this time. So I guess that was a step in the right direction. But
I think there was a G League team. I think because Young Hansen was in the game, and he certainly is not in it as a rookie standout. So.
Oh, okay. So I guess all right. Well, there you go. See, I'm assuming because Young Hansen is a rookie. Are you sure he's not a rookie standard? I think he is.
My friend who's a Trailblazers fan told me he got in with the G League, and there was 3 teams. So I think that there
Okay.
was a G League representative team that, I mean, obviously just lost because there's no point in it being in the game.
Okay. Well, fair
But,
enough. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. All right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No
I
one
agree.
didn't care. So
Yeah.
I'll just leave it with this with what we saw with the press conference. And of course, LeBron has to have a separate press conference just to tell you absolutely nothing. I don't know. When I know, you'll know. It's like, okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Thanks for going ahead and just showing up everybody by going ahead and having your own press conference. These are the things that get people mad about LeBron James. I'm not, this is par for the course for me, but come on, really to tell us absolutely nothing, you have a separate press conference. If it was to say, hey, it's your last season, or I'm going to play another season, officially announce that, fine. But to have your own separate press conference the next day after all the press conferences and just say, you know what, I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of, you know, wasn't doing anyone any favors. I'll
No,
just leave it at
very
that.
LeBron-y, very LeBron-y
Yes.
thing to do. Yeah.
Very LeBron thing to do. But I do want to mention before we go to the second part of the season was the fact that Adam Silver was there to address several topics. I addressed it a little bit on my latest Lakers latest, but I wanted to go ahead and hear your thoughts on. I guess first off, we'll go for the easy one: expansion. They're going to talk. I guess they just talked about it, the board of governors meeting during the weekend, and they've talked about it. Said they're going to try and deliberate and vote on it more in March. They're actually going to try to vote on something that should have more of a definitive answer in March. He did not say. He said relocation is not in the plans. He said, but he doesn't know how many teams or team would be added on if that's the case, if they decide to go ahead with the expansion. Your thoughts on my friend? I mean, because we've talked about expansion before. Again, I think for the dilution of talent side of things, and people are exactly right. It is a dilution of talent. It is a lessening of talent. So the game, the product that will be hampered for a game that is already hampered right now when you watch it because of tanking, which we'll get into in a second. But your thoughts, my friend, on the expansion comments made by Adam Silver?
I've always been very pro expansion. I still am. We'll get into in a second my opinion on tanking. I'm just not particularly concerned about it. And so I think that expansion is great. We're seeing this right now, like Ousmane Dieng, who I told you wasn't bad over and over on this podcast.
You did.
I did. And now he's on Milwaukee, and I'm not saying he's even going to get another contract, but he clearly can play. Like, he's not a horrible basketball player.
It just shows that if you can't, just shows the skill of Sam Presti if you can actually, you know, what Terrence Mann before that, as far as when he went somewhere else outside
Trey Mann went to
Trey
Charlotte.
Man got my mans mixed up, but Trey Man, and he went and started playing at a decent level. It just shows you that you better be damn good before you get even a look on the OKC roster. And that's a guy that they traded 3 first-round picks for to get, and he just never panned out there. But you were right. He did showcase his skill and has been showcasing it on Milwaukee. Both him and Cam Thomas have been doing a good number. Cam Thomas, who I was hoping to get for the Lakers, but obviously, it's about taking the shots for him and getting those shots. And between him and Dieng, they're the new offense for Milwaukee at this point in time.
Yeah, somehow they won a few games with it. But anyway, the point with that was like, that's just, and OKC, of course, is the deepest roster, and it's not a great example. Like, there's a lot of talent that is in past NBA generations would have been role players that just kind of are on the bottom rosters right now, not playing, because I think the league is so talented. And so I don't think there's any question that is it going to even out the talent? Is it going to lessen depth? Yes, it will. But I think bringing back, for me, especially Seattle as a market, is worth that price to pay. That with all the big businesses and CEOs based out of Seattle, they would get a very cash-rich owner who would, I'm sure, be an asset to the league. We'll see about Vegas. I just don't have a great understanding of that. But I mean, there's been so much talk about it. There obviously would be. There's always been Fenway Sports Group mentions with the Vegas basketball team. which again they own Liverpool, obviously Fenway Sports Group. They've owned the Red Sox, although I think they might have sold or they're trying to sell or something. But that would be another great ownership group to get into the league. And so I think those things, and I just think getting Seattle team back would be really good. And I just think the league financially, with how much these players are making, clearly can support another team. That's not a question. The biggest question about it, is it going to dilute talent? And for those who are super worried about tanking, then that is a factor. And obviously the more teams, theoretically, with how it's currently structured, although it seems like we're going to get some changes before we'd get new teams in the league, there'd be some concern that it would just have two more teams tanking in their first couple of years in the league.
So yeah, I mean, he talked about that, talked about the Kawhi situation, just said the league is ongoing. I mean, all he has to do is just turn on his YouTube and just go to Pablo Torre finds out, because 8 episode in, the newest revelations was that there's possibly, outside of a really juicy Jerry West message that he left, talking crap about the Lakers, which I thought was so funny. There was also the fact that the allegations are out that the Clippers may have tampered with Kawhi all the way far back as with the Spurs, involving his trainer, who eventually became part of the Clippers, who eventually left the Clippers, who eventually is suing the Clippers. Your thoughts on this, my friend? Because again, of course they're putting it off, but I will just say, as now there's just so much of a paper trail. You've got sources, as a fellow journalist, when you have sources that are willing to come on the air, mind you, they are disguised for their safety, but then when they come on the air talking about what's going on, when you have a paper trail for almost 10 years of worth of stuff going on that reaches out through several states, through so many different companies now, including ones owned by Kawhi, Aspiration, of course, and the Clippers, it's really hard to ignore what is going on. And if the league does not address it properly, Adam Silver earned a lot of favor when he came in and dealt with a Clippers misdeed, to say the least. He better reinvigorate people's thoughts on him, because right now the thoughts on him are really not that high. And he better reinvigorate with some really harsh action against the Clippers, because it's just such a rising paper trail and rising evidence mount that I don't think anyone can deny any longer.
No, I mean, it's clear, and the language in the CBA is very specific. Like, there doesn't even need to be a paper trail, theoretically. There just needs to be an overwhelming amount of circumstantial evidence. And at a minimum, there is an overwhelming amount of circumstantial evidence for this now. And every time more stuff comes out, and there was a story in The Athletic, the lawyer that they're with, like, the NBA only messes with this lawyer when they really are digging into something and it's a big deal to them. So I think they're taking it seriously. There's been constant, persistent rumors from people who are in the know that maybe there's going to be something come down sooner than later, by the end of the season or whatever. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it would really be a shame for the league, because Kawhi is obviously, been the first, in my opinion, the second best player in the league since Thanksgiving after SGA, but one of the 2 or 3 best players in the league when he's been healthy this season. He's been that good, and he displayed that in the All-Star game, and he's still one of the great players in the league. So from that perspective, it sucks. But I mean, it's clear that something went on here. It's clear that, and we've known that's not news. Like, everyone who is kind of viewing this without, and doesn't have to necessarily do the innocent till proven guilty thing. Like, if this was a civil case, theoretically, the Clippers would lose. There's so much circumstantial evidence with this. And my biggest question is just, what are they going to do? Because clearly they have to do something, because you're right. He's not in a great place. The way he's perceived is not great right now with this tanking stuff. And with, also that's the big thing I think right now, is just how he's handled that and how that's really gone out of control under his watch. But I think he does need to make a statement, and whether that's in anti-tanking rules or whether that's with this, I think he needs to start maybe making some big moves here, just to kind of show that. And it's not fair for anyone to follow up a commissioner like David Stern that was so good. And not only was he such a good commissioner, he was so good at this part of it. He was so good at ruling with the iron fist, having punishments, enforcing penalties when they were needed. He was so good at this part of the job. And Silver came in and immediately gained a ton of goodwill with how he handled the Donald Sterling situation, which he should have. He handled it perfectly, especially for someone who is basically brand new to his post. But that's already 12 years ago now. And so it's been 12 years. And since then, lots of people have problems with the direction where the league has gone. There has not been expansion yet, which I thought if you'd have told me 12 years ago how much salaries are and the fact there'd be the same amount of teams, I just don't think that really tracks. I think money wise, it's clear that the NBA can handle more teams and there's so many good players. So I would assume that there's going to be some punishment here. I don't know what it's going to be, though. I don't think it'll be as significant as, like, are they really going to void Kawhi's contract? I don't necessarily think they would do that, but he'll probably get a lengthy suspension. And the more interesting thing is going to be about the Clippers, because the reality of the situation is, like, we can all MF Kawhi or whatever, but he already has his money. Like, he already got his $30 million to not do anything for aspiration. So, I mean, he can miss some games. Is that a punishment for Kawhi Leonard? Like, he's missed a lot of games, so it doesn't necessarily seem like the biggest deal to him at this point. So the more interesting thing is how they're going to punish the Clippers, and I just don't think any of us know how, because they're in such a unique position with their draft capital where they just don't really have any until the 2030s. They have this brand new, awesome stadium. They're in a good place as a franchise, really. They made these moves that I thought were really good at the deadline. So I don't know how they're going to be punished, but I think they will be, and it'll probably be severely. But I think that needs to happen sooner than later, because just like you said, Silver just needs a PR win for himself as much as anything right now. And that's really the easiest way to get one, because everybody is in agreement that the Clippers should be punished for this, and that it's clear the Clippers were in the wrong and that you cannot let this stand. And if you do, then it's only going to get worse, because if there's no penalty, then why wouldn't people circumvent the cap? Or if it's like, well, Kawhi suspended 15 games, there's your punishment. Like, okay, oh no, I have Jalen Brunson on my team and he has to miss 15 games now. Like, so I think that they need to have a pretty severe punishment here. We'll see what it is. I think that it's going to be really interesting to see, and it'll be really interesting to see if it happens by the end of the season, because obviously from a league perspective, OKC has their pick this year, but OKC also has their pick next year. And that's when I would think that we could see actual, like, severe, like Kawhi could be suspended the season or half the season or whatever, would be next year, not this year. And if that's the case, then it's going to be a double-edged sword for the NBA. They clearly have to punish the Clippers, but I'm sure the teams aren't going to be super happy that OKC is going to probably land another lottery pick out of this.
Well, indeed.
Yeah.
Speaking of draft picks, though, speaking of lottery picks, though, the last thing, but certainly not the least thing, in fact, probably is the most prominent thing in Adam Silver's press conference, was tanking and the issue of tanking. And he said he felt, just by the eye test, that it's probably worse than it ever has been, or more blatant, paraphrasing, than it ever has been in the NBA. It is more present than it ever has been. And yes, just before the All-Star break, they did find two teams, Utah and Indiana. Utah with a really hefty fine for what they've been doing to try and circumvent it, whether it's, players, mysterious illness or mysterious injuries being out, or having your starters pulled out while you have a lead and not playing them for the entire fourth quarter, and not taking a timeout in the entire fourth quarter. If you're Will Hardy and you kid just got to, you go on these press conferences and you just claim ignorance on this, it's just like, he's got a government job waiting for him, is all I'll say on that one. But with that being said, my friend, the issue of tanking was brought up, and he talked about, if I have to take picks, we'll have to take picks, or if we have to, work with the lottery or try to change the draft lottery even more, we'll go ahead and do that. I said on my latest Lakers latest, I said that, you know what? If you find them guilty of significantly influencing games with tanking and tanking operations, take the very thing that they're desiring the most, and that is that first round pick away from them right there and then. If you think Utah is doing that bad, then take that 26 pick from them. You said you don't have a big I guess, deal in this as far as the tanking is concerned. And again, you've covered a team which, people mistakenly think was brought and made today by tanking, which is actually not the case when you look
Mhm.
at it. They tanked for maybe a year,
Two,
maybe
2 years.
two. That's that's at most. So, with that being said, my friend, you said you don't have much stake into this, but I think as a fan, you should because it's just the product. And to see, that the spotlight was going to be turned on to the NBA after the Super Bowl had ended, and the first thing you hear around the league or around the internet, around social media is tanking right after that. That's not a good sign for the NBA and the product you want to try to promote.
Okay, so here's my thing with this. My preface to this is specifically what Utah did, which is have players available for the game healthy, and pulling them for the fourth quarter should be significantly punished. That is undermining the integrity of trying to win the game in the game. And so if you want to at least have the effort of saying, well, Jaren Jackson, these are all professional athletes. They all have legitimate injuries that you can have. And this is not to question the legitimacy of Jaren Jackson's injury, but he played 2 games. And if they were good, I'm sure he would still be playing right now. But now that he's not, he has a legitimate injury, but all these guys have legitimate injuries. And so you can't allow that specific thing. But my biggest issue with this whole conversation, because I'm honestly pretty impassioned about it the other way of what the common talking points have been, is the ideas that are brought up in terms like how are you going to tank it. Obviously, like the most extreme of these has been like, we'll just get rid of the draft, just have guys go straight to free agency. And to me, that immediately completely degrades and gets rid of what people love about American sports. So people always point to European soccer as this, like the NBA copied European soccer with the NBA Cup. Like they clearly have been influenced by this. People say, well, they have such a good system and they don't have a draft. The system in European soccer is essentially 10 to 15 teams eventually end up with 90% of the all-time great players, which is not what we want in American sports, professional sports, as far as I'm concerned. So if we live in a league where they get rid of the draft, there's going to be about 6 teams: the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nets, the Knicks, the Bulls, Houston, Dallas, like some teams. Those are going to get like OKC. And I sent this in an email to someone yesterday. I'll be like, I bring up OKC all the time. I'm sorry if people get sick of it. That's just what I know, the exact examples of what happened there. So I can talk about it with a base of knowledge. OKC from 2010 to 2019 never won a championship, but I think everyone would say they were always really well run. They were always good. They always had good players. They usually had a mid-level exception open. In theory, that should have been a decently attractive place from a basketball standpoint for someone at some point to go. Not that only the Lakers basically just get free agent after free agent. They live in that with that luxury, and not anyone else does. I understand that, but OKC until Isaiah Hartenstein in 2023, in their existence, from the point of their existence in 2007, signed one free agent to a deal above the mid-level exception, or at the mid-level exception or higher, and it was Patrick Patterson, who they signed to a 5-year, $25 million contract. Other than that, despite being well-run, despite clearly having this awesome GM, despite having superstar players, they couldn't get a free agent, and that's solely because they're in Oklahoma City. If the Oklahoma City's whole organization was the Clippers, the Clippers are a bad example because they've been such a joke for 95% of their existence. But an organization in a big city, they would have been able to get free agents that whole time, but they couldn't. And so people wouldn't. And there had to be examples at times of people getting offered a little bit more money to go to OKC or Portland or Indiana or Orlando, any of these cities. And they decided they're going to take a little bit less to go live in these glamour markets, which is fine. And free agency is completely fine with me once players have been drafted. But if you do that, that's going to just continue into the draft. So that's going to sound great. And then last year, Cooper Flagg is just going to say, like, I'm a great player. I'm clearly going to make my money. Yeah, maybe Utah offers me the most money, but my shoe company is going to give me more money if I go sign with the Knicks. So I'm just going to go sign an MLE with the Knicks and I'll make more money that way. That's immediately with what the structure of American sports, that's what no draft opens up. So anyone who suggests that idea, I just think that should be a non-starter. The fact that there's real reporters out there like over and over saying like this is a legitimate thing on the table for the NBA, that would, I think, completely I truly am of the opinion that would ruin the structure of the sport and stop the ability for teams like Oklahoma City to be good, or Portland, or whoever, insert team that's not in one of the big 6 markets in the NBA. They just would never be able to be good again. So that's been the most extreme idea, and I understand that's not where we're going to go right now, most likely. And if we do, that would be insane. But other ideas I've heard is like maybe they'll do a tournament, like an actual basketball tournament for the lottery, and whoever wins the basketball tournament in the lottery gets the first pick. That doesn't make any sense either, because so a really good, maybe this year probably isn't a great example because of how there is a lot of teams tanking in this specific season. But most years, like the year the Thunder got the 12th pick from the Clippers and got Jalen Williams with that pick, the Clippers were good. They had Paul George and Kawhi. Like of course they're going to beat the horrible whoever that year, the horrible Thunder that year who had the 2nd pick and got Chet Holmgren. Like of course they're going to win. And so then if the whole point of the draft is to redistribute talent and give the bad teams a chance to become good, then you can't do it that way, because then the teams that are mediocre are just going to get the good players, and there's no way for the bad teams to even become mediocre unless you hit on 8th pick after 8th pick, which nobody does. And if you do, like Sam Presti hitting the fact that he hits on 80% of his lottery picks is a historical outlier. Like nobody does that. Like people miss at the top of the draft, not to mention if they're picking, if you're that bad and you say it just goes in the order that you finish, yeah, the Wizards suck. They're going to get last in even the lottery tournament, and they're going to have the 13th pick, and then they're going to be bad forever. So then is it worse to tank, or is it worse to just have a team that's perpetually horrific because they have no good players and no chance to get good players? So that doesn't make sense. The only 2 ideas that I can come up with that make any sense, there's things about the wheel. That, again, like if your goal is to redistribute talent, that doesn't make any sense. The only way to do this, there's always going to be teams who have tanked. The teams tanked for Hakeem Olajuwon, I think, was the first year that teams really aggressively tanked for someone. That was in the 1984 draft. Like there's always been tanking. There's always going to be tanking. There's tanking in some way, shape, or form in every sport. The problem with it in the NBA right now is that so many teams tank. I think it's natural and expected that 2 to 5 teams are going to tank every year. It's just too beneficial. One player makes too big of a deal in basketball. There's always going to be teams who find a way. If you do it like the wheel, where it's like random slots and you know what pick you're going to get 29 years before you get it, teams are just going to trade their good players for a pick in 12 years and wait, and they're just going to do it that way. Teams are always going to get whatever advantage they can to pick at the top of the draft, because a team like Washington, to keep a superstar, they either have to sign him to a horrible contract, what they did with John Wall and Bradley Beal. And because if you're pretty good in a small market like that, and right now it's different because of this current apron setup, but I'm assuming these aprons will get significantly changed or scrapped at the next CBA, which is already only like 4 years away. Then the way that the structure was before this, you have to basically overpay your John Walls and your Kemba Walkers and people like that to keep them in these small markets, or else they're going to go take the same deal to play for the Lakers or whatever. So for them to do that, they're already kind of working against small market teams keeping their own guys and also being good. So the 3 ideas I've had for this are, and the fact that this isn't a thing already is insane to me. If a player is drafted by a team or is on a team for a second max contract, then that team should get some sort of cap credit for that contract. That is clearly a player like, so in the rare scenario where this happens, like Denny Avdia, who's probably going to get a max on his next deal from Portland, are obviously like the biggest example of this. Again, sorry that I always bring up the Thunder, but the biggest example of this is SGA, where the Thunder get SGA in a trade, they don't draft him, and then he becomes this league-defining superstar. That first contract, even if you want to say that first contract with him you don't get cap credits for it. If he signs a 35% max, if a player signs a 35% max for the team, which already means they've been with them for a max before that, then maybe give them 10% off of that salary cap hit so that you can incentivize guys to stay places and actually be able to build good teams. Because the only way you can get really great free agents to come to small markets, like the most famous example of this is Orlando, when they had they got Grant Hill and Tracy McGrady, and they nearly signed Tim Duncan. Like that's probably the most famous example. The most recent example, again, Thunder related, of course, every time, is Isaiah Hartenstein left a huge market team in the Knicks and went to the Thunder. And for that to happen, the Thunder had to be coming off a 57-win season. They had to clearly be a young and up-and-coming championship contender. They had to have open cap space. And the Knicks, a huge market team, basically it was the Austin Reeves thing. They're restricted in how much money they could give him. And that made it – they really had no chance of keeping him once he hit the open market. Those four things all have to perfectly align for most small market teams to sign a free agent. And that never happens because if you're good, your team's expensive naturally. And so you have cap credits is the easiest way, I think, to maybe start like getting teams to keep a guy like you can give a guy like Trae Young a big contract and keep him in when he's pretty good because you get cap relief for it, whatever. The other ways to me is keep the plan and go back to the tanking Sixers lottery rules because, again, the real problem right now is not, I think, that there's a couple teams tanking. The problem right now is that there's like 12 teams tanking. And that's because in the current structure, the NBA has incentivized like the Mavericks and the Hawks 2 years in a row jump for the first pick. Like what, of course, why would teams not try and now there's incentive to try and be the 11th worst team if you just basically make it so you keep the plan as it is, because that has, I think, worked, is where teams do play and go for the plan every year. Now, the Bulls, this is the first year they haven't, but the Heat every year go for it. The Hawks every year go for it. The Blazers are going hard for it right now. The Clippers. Like, I think the plan does work to mitigate middle tanking at some level. Now, this year's draft is so good that we're, of course, in an extreme year for this. That's why the conversation is so heavy. But if you basically make it so the top, how it was, where the top four teams are basically one of those four teams is getting the first pick, and maybe you get one team outside the top four in the top four actual picks, I think that stops teams from trying to get the 8th best odds, the 9th best odds. And you're going to have some Sixers situations where it's disgusting and they tried out a horrible product. But what of the, I mean, you'd also think that teams would learn from history. What have the Sixers got from it? A second round playoff appearance? Like, when you tank that hard, there's eventually so many repercussions of instilling losing that it's not really worth it anymore. And so I think that would mitigate your mass number of teams tanking if you just made it so only the top 4 or 5 really have a chance at getting high picks again. Because right now everyone's looking at the last few years and saying the Mavs screwed themselves. They made the worst trade in NBA history, and they ended up getting rewarded for it and making a crazy jump and getting Cooper Flagg, who, from all intents and purposes, has just as good a chance to be a megastar as Luka did. And the other one I have, the one that they won't ever do because the lottery is way too big of a TV product for the NBA, and they don't have that many huge TV products, so they have to keep the ones they have. That's why they're never going to get rid of the lottery. They're always going to tinker and keep it instead of just doing what they should do, which is get rid of it. Have teams pick where they finish. Because then you're truly it's going to get to a point, and really another answer to this, shorten the season to 70 games. I think that everyone agrees for a multitude of reasons they should do that. The owners will never do it because they don't want to lose out on 6 games of home game revenue. I think if you ask anyone for the health of the league, everyone agrees with the increased numbers of injuries, with the players sitting out. If you just shorten games, I think it would honestly solve a lot of problems. Then if you have a good start to the season like Utah has the last 3 years, once you're 20 games in, you can't really like decide you're going to be like if you're 12-8 through 20 games, like you're already kind of just out. You can't really be one of the 3 worst records. But I think the best way to do this is truly just to get rid of the lottery, is have teams pick where they are. That eliminates this thing where, of course, the Wizards are going to tank because the Wizards have been bad for 4,000 years, and you don't get rid of their incentive to be bad enough, but you keep it just percentage-wise, mathematically, they should be wanting to be bad because that's the way for Washington to get star players. But you've made it so that they drop every year. And if they had Cooper Flagg and Alex Sarr right now, I doubt they'd be doing these moves to insanely tank. They'd be probably trying to build around their fun young team in the East. But because you've made it so these insane jumps happen and you incentivize mass tanking, they just have gotten screwed every year. Now they have Trey Johnson, and Trey Johnson's a fine player, but no one should not tank or try to get Cam Boozer because they have Trey Johnson on their team, like you do with Cooper Flagg. And Dallas, of course, is also tanking. That's such a unique situation because they just bombed their team a year ago in a really historically unprecedented situation. But I think if you actually give the really bad teams the really good prospects, That's what the goal of the draft is in every other sport. And I don't know why that's not seemingly the goal in the NBA. You're trying to keep these. You're not trying, but the way you have it structured, these teams like Utah and like Washington are in a position where they've just gotten really unlucky in the lottery every year, and so they don't have like a true awesome prospect to build around, and they have no reason to stop tanking. And so you can do all these things where it's like, well, if you do the wheel, if you allow free agency, no small market's ever going to be good again for a long period of time. You're never going to have another small market dynasty. So if you like that equality, which most of the league fans like small market teams, you need small market teams to be able to be good. So if you get rid of the draft, that's done. If you do go to the wheel, what if in 2018 the Warriors got the first pick with the wheel, and instead of having this new generation of Jonathan Kuminga, they had whoever the first pick in the 2018 draft was, which was that Ayton. That was like Ayton and Luka. Like, imagine the Warriors got Luka because of the wheel. Like, that's what you're opening up to if you do that. Or the Thunder get Cooper Flag because of the wheel. Like, no one wants that to happen, really. And so, to me, the simple answer to this, which has been overcomplicated, is give the bad players the good prospects. Why do you think the NFL doesn't suffer from tanking? It's because if you're really bad for, like, unless you're like the Browns where you just somehow are bad at drafting and you get unlucky with the years you're bad. If you're bad, you draft a good quarterback, like the Commanders. You're bad forever. You draft a good quarterback, you're immediately good. Same with the Bears, same with everyone, because they're easily put in these situations to get the thing they're after. In the NBA, they're not. They say, oh, sure, let's have these teams jump from 10-1 and 12-1, and the Jazz and Wizards are left to build around Ace Bailey and Trey Johnson. It doesn't make any sense. And so that is the end of my very passionate tanking rant, because I have heard so many things, and I just think everyone is missing what the point of every draft is, which is to give the bad teams hope and good players to build around to make them not bad anymore. The answer to stop tanking if a team's bad for 1 or 2 years, I would hope everyone's fine with that. That's the cycle of sports. Like, if you're good, you're bad. That's how it goes. You get old, whatever. What people should have problems with is Washington and Utah, where it's like, okay, guys, you've been trying to be bad for upwards of 4 years. And part of that's because they've never gotten lucky in the lottery. And that's all this league is about, really. And I mean, if Utah had Cooper Flag, or if they get Darren Peterson this year, guess what? Utah's going to be good next year because they got lucky in the lottery once. That's all you need. You just need to get lucky in the right year. And they open up these odds so much that it's possible for Dallas, who didn't deserve to get the first pick. They bungled their team and then got so lucky that now they have this lifeblood. And instead, now Washington and Utah are like trading for Jaren Jackson and trading for Anthony Davis just to try and do some weird thing, because that's how unlucky they've gotten in the lottery.
Well, again, the conversation will continue in regards to this, and I'm curious to see what will happen. I think there will be a little bit less obviousness, I guess, going forward, seeing how it's already hit the pocketbooks of both Utah and Indiana, but there will still be some, I guess, I guess the shenanigans will continue, but it'll be a little bit more discreet as far as how they do it, a little bit more harder to detect. I mean, you and I will probably still see it, but it'll be more along the gray line as far as whether or not they're going to go ahead and all out tank. But there, again, it's a very strong draft, is the belief, what's upcoming as far as the players involved. Again, it's not just at the top. It's just, we're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Those players are still thought of in very high regard. And even in the top 10, they're still thought of as players that can really help out a franchise. So we will see, again, if there will be a curbing of the tanking going forward, but I'm interested to see, once they get some time to really look at it, the competition committee, Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, and how they really address this issue. Because again, to me, it's a matter of the product getting out there. And that, to Adam Silver and to all these sports commissioners, they want the product to get out there to as many people as possible, to be as desirable to as many people as possible. And the current product has its flaws to me. And like you said, there's nothing worse than me being a paying fan and going to see a game where I think I'm leading, my team is leading by 15 points, and then all the starters being pulled out and not playing the entire fourth quarter. That is very
It's not good.
that's just wrong. That's
Yeah.
just wrong. I mean, I was so mad the other day about when the Lakers decided to go ahead and just give up that game against San Antonio after they played the back to back, the second game of the back to back. They played the first game and they lost to OKC. They decided to give up on that second day. And I'm saying you need to let the fans know if you're not going to have a LeBron James and Austin Reeves and a Luka Doncic not play, plus other players as well who did not play, let the fans know and offer refunds at the door. I understand the tickets say no refunds, but that's unfair. You're not providing the best possible product for your consumers. If that's the case, that's something that I think the league has to address as well.
Yeah, and that part of it, I mean, I obviously skipped over that in my really, I think 15-minute long rant. So sorry, no, that's not really what the point of podcasts are. So
no, what podcasts? That's the beauty of podcasts. They can go as long or as short as you want, my friend.
But that is, I agree. And I was going to OKC games my freshman and sophomore year of college when they were bad. And for me, it wasn't a problem because I was like, oh, I wonder how Poku's going to do. That was interesting to me. But I also understand, I know that there was an older man in front of me who had an aneurysm every time Poku had the ball. He was still paying to go see the horrible Thunder, but I don't know what he thought was going to happen was, but he really was mad every game that they lost, which was a lot for those couple of years. But yeah, I mean the worst part of this is the experience for the fans who are paying. And I do understand that is really what needs to be focused in on here. And I think that goes back to, it would really just be a good idea for everyone to, these owners now are so rich, the NBA's TV deals are so big, you could, again, stealing an idea from Bill Simmons and Zach Lowe last night, you could play in more international games to bring in revenue. If you cut off 6 home games, you're going to be fine. And if then that shortens the game, then the teams do have these longer breaks. They don't have excuses to be like, well, not only is Luka out, LeBron's also out, and Reeves is also out, and it's all because, basically, other than Luka, they're all because of rest. That's ridiculous. Have the poor Lakers fans who paid $4 bazillion to go to anything in Los Angeles at least be able to watch Austin Reeves play, for God's what, they want to go watch Bronny score 14? No one. And the best part of the game was seeing Wemby. He could have scored 100 points if he wanted to. But so that part of it sucks. But I'm just, my whole thing is just, in the grand scheme of the league, it needs to be set up in a fair and balanced order. And the only way for small market teams to get stars, largely, unless you get lucky again, like Thunder, like Portland, even if with Jaren Jackson, Utah, I guess that's not luck. They paid a premium for Jaren Jackson, but you can try and go trade for a star, but then good luck getting them to you have to get lucky for them to stay if you trade, because most of the time those happens on an expiring deal. You get Kawhi in Toronto, where what more could Toronto have done to get a guy to stay? Said, okay, Kawhi, you can play 60 games. Okay, Uncle Dennis, you can have ownership of the Maple Leafs. Okay, you can fly around in the private jet. Okay, we won the championship. Okay, we have multiple awesome 24-year-olds. And he was still like, I'm good. I'm going to Los Angeles. That's the epitome of being 95% of small market teams in the NBA. It doesn't matter what you do. These guys, once they're established, unless you can get them in and impress them and woo them and have them it be their team, and you can give them those money, there's just no landing these guys or keeping these guys if you only have them for a year. And so the way to do that is to just give the bad teams, and that can be big market teams too. That can be the Lakers were awful for a few years, and they had high draft picks, and I didn't have a problem with the Lakers tanking. I don't have a problem with anyone who tanks in this present. I think the flattening of the odds, people think it's worked, and I just think it's worked to create more tanking teams. So maybe the bottom isn't as egregious. Maybe we haven't had a process 76ers in a while, but now we have, literally how many, the Clippers, I tweeted this a week ago at the deadline. The Clippers are going to, now they're still playing well too. But at the time, even with the moves they've made, seemingly making them markedly worse for this season, the Clippers are going to make the play-in because only 10 teams are trying in the West. The bottom 5 don't want any part of the plan. They're all trying to lose. And the same thing can be said for the East. There's probably literally 9 or more teams that are we want to lose every game we play right now. And that is only a thing, in my opinion, because there's two reasons. It being an awesome draft and it had this happening in the same year, not coincidences. There's a reason we didn't hear about 9 teams tanking when Zachary Sachet was the first overall pick. This is a truly like these guys are seen as having the potential to be like there's 5 to 6 transformative players. There's 4 transformative players. And then there's always guys who go from 8 to 15 who are awesome players like clockwork every season. It just happens every year. And so you're probably going to get upwards of 6 or 7 true franchise players in this draft. So that plays into it. But then the fact that like in past years, in past structures, there would have been no incentive for Chicago to try and be bad. Or the way they were at the deadline, like the way they decided to start being bad, which was they were fine. They had that great start to the season. I was sitting here saying how the Bulls were going to win 45 games and looking like an idiot on the podcast, believing in the Bulls, something I'll never do again as long as I live. And instead, like they go through this rough patch. They're still, when they decided to do all these moves, they're still like just below 500. But because you can reasonably jump from 11 to 3, and it's not like if that happens, anyone anymore is shocked. Like that happens every year. And so for them to, I think the flattening of the odds has worked backwards. I think it's maybe stopped the extremes of the tanking, but I think it's made tanking beneficial for a larger number of teams. And that's the real problem is if you have 4 teams who are tanking, it's not a big deal. Like there's always bad teams. And the way it works, those 4 bad teams are going to be like how Washington was at the beginning of the season, where Washington could have played their healthy roster. They still would be like the worst team. They just don't have any good players. Same thing with Brooklyn. Same thing with this current Indiana team without Halliburton and Zubats. Like that's just kind of how the league is structured is if you don't have any good players, you're bad, and then you're bad and you get good players to make you less bad. And that seems to have gone away with this flattening of the odds to me. And that's to me what the heart of this issue is they're not letting the bad teams get the good players. And another thing I can say, again, about OKC is they were the only team to vote against this flattening of the lottery odds because I think Sam Presti maybe foresaw a little bit of what was going to happen with this, where which not that there's going to be a bunch of tanking, but like it's going to make it so that the teams that are bad don't just get like, okay, here we're giving you the good players. That's what's happened for all of NBA history until the last 5 years, and now we're having widespread tanking. I don't think those things are a coincidence, but it does really suck for the paying customers. I've been a paying customer. I totally understand. Like you don't want to go watch, not everyone wants to go watch the Thunder play Josh Hustis and Charlie Brown Jr. and Poku. And like, that's not the ideal fans' idea of a good time. And they're still charging really a lot of money for tickets in the economy right now. So I get that. It sucks, the ticket thing and the paying customers, but if you just made it so that these teams were getting these bad teams were getting the good players, then I don't think it would be a long-term problem. Maybe fans have to suffer through a year, maybe 2 of being bad. But if you have one of the 2 worst records those years, you get 2 top 4. Like if the Jazz right now had the worst record last year, they fell to 5 and got Ace Bailey, but say they fall to 2 instead of 5, like what would have happened through most of NBA history. And then they get 2 this year again. And they have Dylan Harper and AJ DeBansta, they're just not going to be that bad all of a sudden. Like it's just kind of how it works. And I think that's been taken away. And that's what I think the biggest problem with tanking is again. And I'm sorry I went on a secondary rant about it, but
no, all good, my friend. Just again, you're passionate about your thoughts, and that's what we want. That's what we want as far as you're giving those observations to people out there. And again, with the league right now not playing, it's good time, right as any, to go ahead and make sure you voice exactly how you feel about it.
yeah. So, I mean, I'm just all for either doing a straight draft like the NFL does. And shockingly, the NFL has the best draft system and the least amount of teams that just stay horrible forever, unless you're the Jets or the Browns, basically. So if there's the fact I've seen any of this momentum for this getting rid of the draft thing, it blows my mind. That's not what we do in American sports. It's not how some American fans, I think that they want it to be like European soccer. You don't want it to be like European soccer. And the most famous European soccer league is the Premier League. And I think over the last 50 years, there's a big 6, but really it's a big 5. That's Arsenal and Chelsea and Man United and Man City and Liverpool. And I think those 5 teams have won the league like 48 of the last 50 years. because that's
There
just
you go.
because that's just how it goes. Is that what we want? Is that what you want? And do you just want the Lakers, Knicks, and Bulls to rotate the championship? I'm sure Lakers fans do, but nobody else does.
And the argument that Joe Soro, who you've been on the show with once, that's his argument as far as he doesn't believe in the parity because he thinks that the league was more successful and financially and ratings wise. Although again, it's hard to discern whether or not is the league more successful when you have a limited number of teams vying for the title or when you have a larger mix of teams vying for the title because it's a different atmosphere as far as is concerned from when it's so hard to pair up the 80s and 90s to today as far as how the audience perceive it because there was less things for the audience to do. Quite
Yeah.
frankly, they did not have a plethora of outlets to go ahead and watch and view and take it all in. So that's in the favor of the 80s and 90s as far as how they garnered their audience. And it's with so many different things that people can do now these days, it's harder for an entity, NBA, sports, whatever, movies, whatnot. Everything is suffering right now because as far as people don't go to movies as much as they
Mhm.
once did. People don't watch as much sports as they once did. People don't do a lot of things as what they once did because it's a different environment for a way we consume stuff as a
Yeah,
whole. And so
for sure.
it's harder to compare. So I can see his reasoning when he says, get rid of the salary cap, get rid of all the stuff, and just make it to where it's just 3 or 4 or 5 teams vying for the title each and every year. But again, this is a new and different, period in human history. So we don't know if that would go over. If you tried would that go over? But he has the proof by the Dodgers. He and what he brings into this, of course, with Mark Walter buying the team and now starting to implement a lot of the stuff with the Dodgers into the Lakers organization. We've seen the success that the Dodgers have and the ratings that have come up from it. So the product has been more visible or more interesting as a whole, as far as at least the playoffs and World Series are concerned, as far as a consumer vying product than it has been in quite some time.
I mean, I think that two things. I think that that's just really a fan of a big market perspective of it, which is understand. I mean, I understand that. But two, I think dynasties drive rate. I don't think it being like in the '90s, it's not as if they're like in the
Oh,
'90s.
dynasties will drive ratings, but that goes back to his point that you
Yeah,
said, like
but
you said, 3 or 4 teams.
so yeah, like
Vying for it.
The Bulls won all the championships, but at the time the Pacers were good, the Knicks were good, the Jazz were good, the Supersonics were good, the Trailblazers were good, the Bulls were good. Like there was like 7 or 8 really good teams. It's not as if there was like 3 good teams every year. Like there was a lot of good teams still.
Mhm.
Which is really the same thing as it. Like how many teams realistically right now have a real chance to win the championship this year? It's or how we think. It's OKC, it's Denver, it's you can. I don't even know if I'd put Minnesota in there, but I guess you can. They've been in back-to-back West Finals. We'll say they are, and it's the Knicks and it's the Pistons. And I guess if you want to say the Celtics, I'm not a buyer in that with Tatum coming off an Achilles injury. So if you just go look at like how many teams they're going to win 50 plus games, I don't think the number is going to be dramatically different. It's not huge markets that are doing it. Fair, like it's OKC, who's has the best chance to be a dynasty we've seen since Golden State. But I mean, the league is driven. Both sides can make really good arguments, and I totally get what he's saying because it seems coincidentally that like, well, when only a handful of teams are good, the ratings are better. I also think that's just because if there's 10 good teams that all you think like could be in the finals, don't be shocked, but one wins the championship. Like, I mean, I wasn't around obviously, but I know that like the Bulls and Pacers and Knicks all were really good. And I know that the Jazz and not Timberwolves, definitely not the Timberwolves, the Jazz and Trailblazers and Supersonics and the Spurs with David Robinson were pretty good. And I'm missing teams that literally made the finals and conference finals, but there was like 8 to 9 teams who can make the finals still. And so I don't think that's any different. There was a dynasty at the time, and maybe there's a dynasty now, and that dynasty just could be in Oklahoma City or Denver or San Antonio or somewhere where no one, it's not LA, so it doesn't feel like a big deal. But I mean, I think that that's just a really big markety way to look at it. I mean, I get what he's saying, because technically I think the data would support his point, and therefore he, I think, mathematically would win. But I do just think that that's coincidental, where I think if a dynasty we haven't had a dynasty happen to be in a small market yet in the NBA. But if OKC all of a sudden wins 4 championships in the next 7 years, I think all of a sudden the ratings will be fine, and it's just going to be the dynasty happens to be in OKC. As someone who's from Iowa and roots for Oklahoma teams, I watch the Dodgers because I despise the Dodgers because they win. Like, I think people are going to start despising despising the Thunder if they win 4 championships. People you already see online, people already really don't like the Thunder, and they've won 1 championship. So I think, I don't know. I just think that is happenstance personally, but that's just me.
There you go. A lot of passion right there for you. But again, I just want the product to be accessible. I want the product to be viable, and I want the product to be desirable to a large base. Whether you want no salary cap involved or not, to even out the playing field or not. Again, I really just want the product to be something that I can be proud of and be enjoyed, enjoy watching. Basically, is what I'm asking for. So, again, there are days that it's not very enjoyable when you sit out all your players. It really turns people off. And then, I said the next time that they do it against a viable contender, I'm literally going to post 90 minutes of black screen and let you guys have a conversation, because I am going to do it. Because I'm going to say, if your time is not valuable enough to go ahead and play for millions of dollars like you do, just because you're tired or you want to play on back-to-back, okay, then I guess I'm too tired to go ahead and be doing 5 hours of podcasting based off of the fact that you guys quit. So, and just being mad about that. I'll put my time to better uses if you're going to do so as well. Again, that's the thing. That's just what I want to see rid of. I just want to see a product that I can be proud of continuously going forward. And I don't feel like that's the case 100% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, unfortunately, the way the league should be structured, as I've already gone over a couple times, I think naturally is always going to be 4 teams like that, whether they're tanking or that's just how the talent imbalance ends up, where there's always just going to be 4 teams who really suck. And
always there's going to be teams. I mean, that's just the way a league is set up.
Yeah,
you're going to have teams
and so
bad ones.
The problematic thing, like I've said a couple times already, is like when it's this year where it's like a third of the league isn't trying to win games right now, and that's not good. And I do think, but I've already said a couple times, I think the biggest part of that is that you've incentivized teams to be the 10th spot, because you can jump up like the Hawks did. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't see for what your goal is, which is, I think, is what the goal of the league should be, which is to have the most watchable product possible. I think that getting rid of a salary cap in the short term, maybe it would lead to, it's like anything. It's like, I think everybody knows that's what's going on with college sports isn't good. It doesn't feel good, right? Like, we all know this watching it. Like, we all know something is amiss and this is going to be bad. But the ratings have never been higher because it's new and it's explosive and it's crazy. And that's what would happen. That's what happens anytime there's a huge change in a sport. So I'm sure the ratings would be good the first 2 years when the Lakers and Knicks played in the playoffs and played in the finals every year. But I think 10 years in, the product would never be worse, because if there's no salary cap, it's going to be, that's what baseball is going to put in a salary cap, partially because of teams like the Dodgers, but it's more so going to be because there's teams that don't meet the salary floor. Like, there's teams that don't pay enough to field a competent roster. That would happen in basketball too. And especially with how basketball players work, and there's not these super long, you can't in basketball offer these 13-year contracts to keep a guy in San Diego like you can in baseball. You offer him your 4-year deal. That's what you can offer him and whatever. I think in a decade, you'd see a third, it would be like this now, where a third of the league doesn't try, except at least Utah, it makes it feel grosser because it is grosser. But Utah does have good players. They're just choosing to try and get more good players under the current thing and not playing those good players. I think if you went to a no salary cap or a no draft system, you'd end up at a place where Utah just didn't have any good players. Portland and Indiana and OKC and Toronto and Orlando, they just didn't have any good. Like no one played for the Wizards would just have the equivalent of the South Bay Lakers as their roster every year because no one would assign there. And so I vehemently disagree with Joe, as I think you've probably picked up by now. But
you wouldn't be the first. I'll just leave it at that.
Yes, but so no, I mean it sucks that the product's bad. I think they need to. Like I've said a couple times, I would just get rid of the lottery. I think that's the best way to truly redistribute talent and give bad teams opportunities to get good and add blue chip players. I don't think they'll ever do that because of the TV market, the TV product that the lottery has become. But you should at least make it more. You should make it more favorable to be one of the 3 worst teams to me, because then 9 teams can't really realistically try to be the 3 worst teams. If the teams just want to be terrible and be bad the whole season, like the Sixers were, that's your choice. You're taking they'll hemorrhage money ticket sales wise. The team success has never come for Philly. Like I don't think that's a good return. You're going to get a good return on investment. Teams would eventually realize that, and it would stop these Bulls situations and these Mavericks situations where we're going to have this where Cooper Flag. I bet I'd be willing to bet Cooper Flag plays in less than 20 games the rest of the season because he has a mid-foot sprain that he's probably already healed from, that he is going to miss 30 games with, because the Mavs have incentive. The Mavs know better than anybody. They have incentive to have the 12th worst record. And so I would get rid of that. I've heard people say, take the lottery the other way, like maybe include the teams that lose in the first round of the first round of the playoffs, maybe include them in the lottery. I would, if anything, go the other way. I would say maybe have the lottery only be those like bottom 6 teams if you really need it or whatever, something like that. You'd have to find a way to structure it, but to get truly elite prospects. So you're making the blanket thought that there's elite prospects in every draft, which we know there's not. We just realized this with the Risachet, Sarr, Castle draft. But making the blanket assumption that there's like 2 to 3 elite prospects in every class. To get an elite prospect, you should have to be elitely bad. You should have to be horribly bad. And that's the quickest way to get bad teams to medium. And then that player will continue to grow. And one player makes all the difference in basketball. And the fact they've gone away from that is what I think has led to this. But I'm finding that's a pretty unique opinion to have, really. So, yeah, that's my spiel for the 3rd time now. But I don't know. I am passionate about it because I just think, viewing this from a small market perspective, the league's already set up and has already been set up in a lot of ways to not really to make it really difficult on small markets. And I think doing something like getting rid of the draft, you're just killing 2/3 of your league on go with that in the long term. So yeah, but it sucks for the paying customers. Definitely, that's too bad. But it's kind of part of the game right now, in my opinion. I don't know.
Well, we will see what is going to continue to be done with tanking, but great conversation indeed. But before we head on out, you wanted to talk about some of the themes and stories behind what may go on with the second part of the season coming up starting on Friday. So I know you had some things in mind. I guess for me and the Lakers, it's just, can we keep our big 3 healthy, and what do they look like when they do play with each other out there for more an extended period of time? Because it seems like as soon as one gets on the court, one gets hurt, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd like to see them go on a run and see what they can do to be at least competitive in the Western Conference. I don't think at this point, well, if LeBron says they're not a championship team, and I guess that pretty much snuffs that out for a lot of people as far as it's concerned. But who knows? If they go on a run, SGA gets hurt, Jokic gets hurt, which has already happened already this season. You never know, indeed. But what are some of the stories and themes that you think need to be noted before we head on out?
Yeah. So since I went so crazily long, I don't have anything super long in these anyway. But I just came up with 3 things that I thought were going to be really interesting to watch the rest of the season. And I think number 1 on that list is going to be Jason Tatum's return that feels imminent off an Achilles tear, which is crazy because he tore his Achilles like 6 months ago. Probably longer than that now, maybe 8, but like not very long ago. And he's practicing now with their G League team. And He's not going to come back and be Jason Tatum. Obviously, I don't think anyone expects that, but I think it really creates a lot of interesting situations in itself with how does that impact this terrific season Jaylen Brown is having. We both agree that Jaylen Brown should be in the top 5 of everyone's MVP ballot. We've talked about it a few times. Does this there really hasn't been anyone near as good as the Pistons all season. And I think the prevailing thought before was like maybe the Knicks will be the finals team. That's who I picked to make the finals before the season. And then maybe you could get like a Cleveland. They have so much talent and they're so expensive. Maybe they can make it, but it's really just been the Pistons from start to finish, just like it's been the same way it's been the Thunder from start to finish. Like it hasn't been close in the standings. So could a Jason Tatum addition to the Celtics, along with getting a Nikola Vucevic and having this great Jaylen Brown season, could that maybe launch them into being able to make the finals this year when, like I said, 8 months ago, really, it felt like all hope was lost. We thought maybe they'd be like the Pacers are this year, where the Pacers are going to be as gross of tankers as anyone because of the pick they traded at the deadline for Zubats. But that's really, I think, what everyone kind of thought would happen with the Celtics, especially after they shed all the salary in the summer, and they've gone the other way. Jaylen Brown's been an MVP candidate, and now Tatum's, I think, probably going to come back in March sometime. It sure seems like that's where it's headed. So I think that's really interesting. Kind of the second one I have is just, will this aspiration Kawhi Clippers penalty come down in season, like right now? Because of, I think it's going to be interesting because of what we just went for 40 minutes or whatever about with the tanking thing, where the Clippers are like by default, unless Kawhi gets a significant injury, which unfortunately is always in the cards for him. Obviously, no one hopes that happens, but it just is what it is with him at this point. They're basically a shoe into the 10 seed because no one is trying. Like it's the Blazers and Clippers are in the 9 and 10, and that's just kind of what it's going to be, barring something really odd happening. So are they going to suspend him and add another team to that rank of like dreadful to watch? Because that team now, with no Zubats, no Harden, without Kawhi, the Garland, Isaiah Jackson, Ben Mathurin Clippers in this West, I don't think anyone would want to watch. That sounds like an awful team to watch to me. So I'll be interested to see if maybe because of this volume of tanking teams, they hold off to that till after the season, or if they just come down tomorrow and say Kawhi suspended the rest of the season. I think anything's possible with it. I think that's really interesting. And then I think the third thing, which is a hypothetical, but I think the vibe around OKC seems to be that Shea is going to be back quickly after the break from his abdominal injury. But if he misses the needed games to miss MVP, and Jokic can miss one more game, that's I think pretty in play, and I don't know who would win MVP. Like, is Cade Cunningham just going to win MVP? Like, out of nowhere? Like, what were the odds to that before the season?
That's true, but I did look at DraftKings before. Well, again, as I said before, Joe Soro and John Costa laughed at me when I suggested that from the outside. I think I was talking to you 2 weeks ago on this when I noted that a lot of the NBA pundits out there think that the storyline for Cade Cunningham is better than Luka Doncic right now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think he's third in most of the book. I think
DraftKings has him third. It's just a fact of life. And I was on last week with Matt John, who covers the Utah Jazz, and he put Luka fifth and put Jaylen Brown in there. He put Cade Cunningham in there ahead of Luka. It's just that simple. When you're leading a team that's fighting for sixth place, as opposed to a team that's leading the Eastern Conference, it just makes for a better narrative. And sorry, it's again, it's just something that they don't see because of what they're focused in on with the Lakers. But if you look at it from a broader NBA perspective, it just is what it is. I'm hearing, and when I'm observing all these other people saying, hey, you got to watch out for Cade Cunningham, it just means you got to watch out for Cade Cunningham, because like you said, if SGA and Jokic don't meet the required number of games, then there's a free-for-all as far as is concerned, and it might wind up being him or Brown or somebody else. It's just going to be hard to give it to a guy like Luka, even though he's leading the league in scoring and 33, 9 and 9. But if your team's only in sixth place in the Western Conference, that's not exactly the best. I mean, they did it before with Russell Westbrook, but I seriously doubt they're going to be able to do that again with him. In fact, just because the fact that this team has done okay, but it's just done okay, with him leading the way.
Yeah, I mean, if SGA, and again, I don't think as of his current injury status, I don't think this is supposed to happen with his ab injury. But if he misses enough games, the Pistons will have the best record in the NBA because the Thunder will not win.
Right now, they do.
Do they have a better record than the Thunder now? Okay, well,
They
already do that.
They have a better percentage right now than the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Well, if that holds over to the end of the season, then and the SGA misses those games, then there's not a real what MVP is supposed to be. There's not a real even argument for Luka. The Westbrook situation was so unique because we talked about narrative with Calif. He had the huge I stayed after KD left narrative. There's no Luka narrative. He got traded to the Lakers and everyone feels bad for the Mavs fans and they still are crying even though they got probably the NBA cheated and gave them Cooper flag. So that's not a narrative for him to win. And the narrative is there for Caden that he wouldn't even need a narrative if that was the case. He's the best. He'd be the best player. He might already be the best player on what would technically be the best regular season team. And so to the Lakers, any Lakers people who want to suggest that Lucas should just win it over Cade, there's no historical backing to that sentiment to me. I don't know what the case would be if you look back at how the award has always worked. But yeah, I mean, those are what I think the three things to me that are interesting are because I think that Tatum really could make Boston if it's not Detroit, I think Boston with Tatum would be second, even if he's only 70% of Jason Tatum. And then the Kawhi aspiration thing is just hanging over. I mean, we already talked about it. Like it's hanging over Silver and the league now, both, not just the league. It's hanging over Adam Silver. And then, we just talked about the MVP thing. So I would feel pretty safe because SGA just hasn't really missed games unless the Thunder have wanted him to miss games in his career until this. So I think SGA is probably pretty safe to win it here, but who knows? Anything could happen. He could sprain an ankle and miss. Look what happened to Jokic. He just kind of sprained his knee and missed a month. That could happen to anybody. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, those are what I thought the three things, kind of interesting storylines to watch were. And then, just this Detroit turnaround is really interesting too, but I think that deserves a longer time slot than we currently should give it.
Well, that's what I want to close with is that I think that, with all the talk of Cavaliers becoming a force again in the East, with all the talk of the Knicks playing, reasonably well heading into the All-Star break, with all the talk about Jason Tatum coming back, the fact is, and with all the talk that OKC is just waiting for SGA to come back and they're just going to turn it on again at any point in time. Jalen Williams is kind of back, kind of not back. Of course, he shows up for the Lakers game, but that's another story altogether as well. But they always seem to do that, the opposing team. But anyways, be that as it may, I think that a good storyline will be how do these younger teams like Detroit and San Antonio, which have far exceeded expectations, do in the second half and going forward, because I don't think you should sell either team short at this point in time from what I've seen.
No, I think I will say on just a small OKC point, when Jalen Williams played that next game against Phoenix, and I didn't think he looked very good against the Lakers until he kind of took over.
Oh yeah, until Austin Reeves guarded him, but that's beside
well, he kind of took whatever the reason. He kind of took over that fourth quarter and won the game, but I didn't think.
Oh yeah, he did. I remember. I watched it.
Yeah, I didn't think he was good the first three quarters, but he was amazing the next night against Phoenix. He was 11 of 12, had 28 points in 20 minutes, and then he just pulled his hamstring and he immediately left the game and was grabbing at it. So that was the first. I had been kind of worried all season that maybe he was just not going to be back in form after his wrist injury. I thought maybe he'd need a year. It kind of seemed like that when he was healthy, but he was hitting pull-up threes and everything against Phoenix. That game is the most confident I've felt since OKC's 23-1 start, that I thought the Thunder were going to repeat as champions, was watching that game. That's how good he was against Phoenix. So I do think that they do not seem to be particularly good. There was a lot of more, it felt a lot more concerned about that first hamstring strain than this one. I think maybe he should be back pretty quick. It felt like, at least hamstrings are weird. But anyway, San Antonio just has a tough task ahead of them. Like Wemby is there. And we both love Castle. We've talked about that ad nauseum on here, but I think they remind me of when OKC won 57 games and lost to Dallas. I think they have the one guy who I do think is ready, and is a potentially all-time great player, obviously in Wemby. The
Their
guys
key is their guards. Those 3 guards. If those 3 guards produce, could mean a lot of trouble for any team, including the Thunder.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they've proven this regular season they're a real matchup problem for.
But I
OKC.
mean, in the playoffs, if those 3 guards hold up in the playoffs, because Wemby, I think Wemby's going to hold up.
Yeah,
I think Wemby's going to play a little bit smarter ball than he is, less of the turnarounds that frustrate almost every NBA aficionado, more of the stuff that he does really well at. And I think in the playoffs there's going to be a lot of attention put on him by the other teams, but those 3 guards will be the key. The Spurs will go as far as those 3 guards.
yes, them. Yeah, and I agree, and that's what I think the similarity to that 57 win Thunder team is Shea was ready against Dallas and Luka. Jalen Williams was not yet. He just wasn't at a play. He was not where he needed to be. He really struggled in that series. And OKC is obviously better than that Dallas team was, and I think this Denver team is better than that Dallas team was. And I'd put him right on par with what this Minnesota team is, to be honest. So I just think the West is harder, and Wemby's definitely ready. I think Wemby's going to be ready for anything that anyone throws at him throughout his whole career. I think with all-time greats, it happens earlier than you think. I understand that. I think if they won the championship next season, I wouldn't be shocked. But I just think relying on a guy like Castle, who's never been in the playoffs, even Fox has 1 playoff series in his career. Obviously, Harper's a rookie. They're so inexperienced, and no matter how great you are, almost you at least need like a year of okay, this is what this is. It's different. It's not the same. And so I think that I don't think that San Antonio will make the finals this year, but I also am not ruling it. I'm not ruling out that Wemby's just so transcendently great. Castle's a little bit ahead of schedule. Maybe Harper is fine, and Fox plays well. If those things all happen, then they could make. Yeah, I mean, they again, already during this regular season, they've proven they can go toe to toe and beat OKC 4 times to OKC's 1, although one of them doesn't really count. But whatever. I mean, even in a regular season series, they won 3-1. Denver would be an interesting series just to see what they did with Wemby on Jokic. I think that would just be fun to watch. So I think San Antonio is going to be a really fun playoff team. I don't think I see them making the finals yet. Detroit, on the other hand, should just at this point they should be the heavy favorite to make the finals. There's been no one else in the East that's really came up and said we are on par. Like the Pistons have just been the best team in the East from the beginning of the season on. There's never been any question. So I think they should be the odds-on favorite. I'm sure they are on the books, but they should be the odds-on favorite to make the finals out of the East, I think. And Cade is awesome. That'd be great for Cade. I think it could maybe be a similar – now, the way that Halliburton did it last year with all his game winners, I literally don't think will ever be recreated. But just in terms of that, Cade's really – we all understand Cade's really good, but is he really with those guys? And then all of a sudden the Pistons are in the finals, and he's one of those guys. I could definitely see that happening. So it is going to be interesting. I agree. These young teams are even like San Antonio, even like what Houston does, they obviously feel older because of KD, but they're really a young team, and they're going to be interesting, I think. So, yeah, I mean, these young teams are going to have been the young teams as normal are the story in the NBA, and they're going to be this season particularly again.
We'll find out indeed. But before we head on out, Calif, you got something going on with the Suave Report and the New Century Press, the publications that you currently work for right now.
I mean, I'm doing a lot. It's a lot of state. I'm really busy right now. It's a lot of state tournament stuff for high school. So I'm kind of focused on that. But Adam, my guy I work with at Suave Report, he was at All-Star Weekend and did some stuff and was at SGA's event. If any cool shoe event, he had a weird velvet brown car. It was quite interesting. But he was there. So if you want to see maybe some behind the scenes All-Star content, if you haven't seen enough of that, maybe go check that out on Adam's page, Suave CEO. And I hope I'm finally getting a little bit of downtime here in 2 or 3 weeks where I can more focus on the NBA. So for a few weeks at least. So I'm excited for when that happens. I haven't had anything come out really in a while. I was thinking about maybe writing something about this, my tanking thoughts, but I just kind of got them all out here. So maybe I still will. But if anything, be on a lookout for that. I just kind of Holmgren. I've said over and over again I was going to write that, but I just think the time isn't right now. Like he's just kind of, I think, been a little underwhelming the last month or 3 weeks or so. So I want to wait for him to maybe be on a bit of an upswing to write a puff piece about him. But yeah, so I mean, always keep an eye out on Adam's stuff. He does really cool video, easier to digest stuff than what I do. So yeah, but I hope to have something here in the next couple months or a month or so come out when I have a little bit of downtime.
Oh, there you go. Go ahead and check out his work when it happens at the Swab Report and the New Century Press as well. Well, my friend, it's great to have you feeling better and back. You seemed like you were bottling all this up for a week that you missed, but any last thoughts before we head on out?
Not really. I think I definitely effectively communicated my frustrations with what's going on with the coverage of the league right now.
There you go, indeed. Well, I didn't get clear your thoughts on tanking, so I was wondering if you could re-elaborate on, on that. But Calif, great to have you here as always. Looking forward to the next time you and I again can provide everyone out there some NBA observations right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.